Thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I'm your host, Nathan.
I'm Damon.
And today we're going to continue here in the AFC North. We're going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2021, they were 9-7-1. They finished second in the AFC North, and they lost in the wild card game to the Chiefs 21-42. Offensively, they ranked 23 in yards, 21 in points. Not great. Defensively, 24 in yards allowed and 20th in points. I'm a little surprised by that because I would have thought that their defense was a little bit better than that.
Well, I think it's hard to keep a good defense when your offense is struggling.
Yeah. And obviously, look, Roethlisberger, I said a couple years ago, should have retired. I think it was very obvious the last 2 years. By the time he got halfway through the season, his arm was falling off. And it was hard to see him make some of those passes. So maybe, the Steelers do this thing that I actually really do appreciate, and that is loyalty in their stuff. They do it with their players. They do it with their coaches. They do it with their internal organization all over the place. I respect that. I really do. I think that it's one of the best organizations in football with the way that they run their office. But I think sometimes it does bite them a little bit, and I think in this situation, they probably should have moved on from Roethlisberger a couple years ago, but they let him stay on and decide for himself when he was going to retire. So it's a good thing for the organization that they did that, but at the same time, I think that they were affected by it.
I would say even with like Mike Tomlin. Did we get to that part yet?
No, we haven't. We'll get to that when we get to that. It's coming up, Danny. All right, GM Omar Khan. That's the new one. He is from within the organization, so he was brought up through the ranks there. He's replacing Kevin Colbert, who was 2016 to 2022 GM. So we'll have to see how Omar Khan does. But again, this is what they do. They pull from the inside. They promote from within. It's a well-run organization. I have a hard time thinking he's probably not going to do a good job because they know what they're doing. Coach Mike Tomlin, 2007 to present. For some reason I didn't write down the years, how many years that is, but from 2007 to now.
It's a lot.
There's a lot. I think it's 21 years, I think. No, not.
Well, it's 2022, so it'd be like 15 years.
15, there you go. 21 years. What was I thinking? Anyways, yeah.
So 15 years for an NFL head coach.
He's 162, 94, and 2. That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay, but 15 years for an NFL head coach that's not a Sith Lord is an extremely long time.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, Mike Tomlin is not Bill Belichick's evil apprentice, so we don't think he's a Sith Lord like Bill Belichick. But he has been there for a very long time. And this is the point I would make. I feel like for a while there, maybe he had lost that locker room. Mm. Maybe that voice had become stale. But now I feel like instead of getting rid of him and finding a new guy, I think they kind of turned over that roster, and now they've gotten young, and
he can get that
locker room back. He's a good coach. When I say his voice got stale, I'm not saying there's a problem with him. I think this happens in the NFL. Good coaches need to move on every so often. The media likes to talk about, how many chances is this guy going to get? Well, part of the reason I think that happens the way it does with coaches moving on frequently and getting new spots, Parcells is one of the best coaches of all time. He coached like 6 different places. I think your voice can get stale, especially if you are with the same group over and over and over again. Yeah. And I feel like that kind of happened with Tomlin. Like he was starting to kind of lose things a little bit there. Through the Antonio Brown stuff, Roethlisberger getting old stuff, some of the defensive players were starting to chirp at him and make comments about him. But I feel like they've kind of cycled through all those players now, and they've rebuilt and gotten young, and he can get back to being just Mike Tomlin head coach, and he's proven to be good at that role. So I think that they're probably back on track, ready to be a competitive football team. Theme of this whole series has been AFC is loaded, so competitive with a caveat because, well, we'll discuss it.
Okay, so free agents additions. James Daniels, guard from Chicago.
I really like James Daniels. I don't know that I wasn't sad to see him walk because I don't think he was going to fit what our new head coach did, but for a team that he's a run blocking guy, he can do that. And
I got a
think
feeling that that's what they're going to hit.
I think having him open up holes for Harris will make a lot. Harris, that's the running back, right?
Yeah. Not Harris.
Yeah. I think that will make a lot of sense. I think that was a great addition by them. I think he has the upside to be a Pro Bowler in the right scheme. And I don't think he was going to scheme fit for us, and it made sense for us to move on and let him go. But I think it's a great pickup because had we not changed our scheme, I would have really wanted to keep him.
Miles Jack, inside linebacker at Jacksonville, seemed like a really talented player, and I think that's the Steelers have a great linebacking core. So to add a guy who I think has more upside than he's shown at this point in time, but if any team can get out of him, he come from Jacksonville. There's a lot of problems over there. He's going on to a team that's well established, especially when it comes to that side of the football, and especially in that group. So I think they're going to get the most out of Miles Jack, and I think he's got a lot of upside. I think it was a good bring-in for them.
Agreed.
Mason Cole, center for Minnesota.
Don't know a lot about him.
Me neither. But it seems like they definitely are throwing people at their offensive line.
They need to be retooled.
And to your point, especially if they lean more towards the run game, now you've got this situation where you're transitioning out of a quarterback that could throw 5,000 yards, upper 4,000 yards a year, to now you're probably are going to lean on this running back that you went and drafted, who I think has extreme upside.
And let's not, in addition to throwing for 5,000 yards, a quarterback that you didn't have to block for.
No, because he
would just throw the guy down.
Yeah, which ended up, I think, being the problem.
You could just let the guy go, and he would just throw him on the ground and throw the ball anyway. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to do that.
You're not going to be able to do that now.
With the new guy.
Absolutely. And speaking of the new guy, next up, Mitchell Trubisky, quarterback out of Buffalo, which we know played for the Bears.
Yeah.
Personally, myself, I think that this kid's got a lot more upside than I think people think. I think, who knows? I mean, it's really hard to know. But I'm not sure that the Bears really know how to utilize quarterbacks. They haven't seemed to be able to do that. And if Mitch Trubisky has a lot more upside than it actually showed there, I think this is a team that he can go to and they can actually get that out of him.
Yeah, I mean, jury's out on Mitch.
Yeah,
I saw Mitch do some great things, and I saw him do some head-scratching things. And some of the things I thought maybe coaching was holding him back, and then some of the things I thought, well, now I know why the coach is holding him back, because he does that. He didn't have a lot of experience coming out of college at the time, which that was part of the reason people questioned us for drafting him so early when he only had 13 college starts to his credit. So I think he's a kid that needs seasoning, and it could be that he has a future with the Steelers, but you might have to go through a year or two of growing pains and just deal with it. And I don't know if that's really what you're going to do, considering that they also drafted a quarterback, which we'll talk about when we get to the draft picks. So I don't know. I don't know what that does. And the other thing, too, I don't think Mitch dealt with pressure well when he was in Chicago. When the fans started to turn on him, he didn't seem to deal with that well. When they brought in another quarterback to compete with him, he didn't seem to deal with that well.
Well, we'll have to see how that goes, because he's definitely got a quarterback to compete with him.
He's got a quarterback to compete with him, and I don't know how patient the Steelers fan base is going to be with him, considering...
Well, we also have to talk about the fact that he did go and learn under Josh Allen in a system that really, I think, taught Josh Allen to be Josh Allen. He did not come out ready and out of college. He kind of got coached up to the position where he's at, which who can argue how good it is? Now, obviously, I'm not trying to compare Mr. Trubisky to Josh Allen, but I will say that if he went through a year under Buffalo's coaching staff, it might have done a lot to improve his game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. He got drafted. We got drafted for a reason. As much as I'm frustrated with the Bears' former front office and coach, they weren't complete idiots. He has talent.
Yes.
So, yeah. Could he end up being a great guy? Yeah. Could it be a slow process? Maybe. Like you said, the Steelers have loyalty. Will they be loyal to him when they just drafted another guy who's from the area, local guy? So I think that's the big question marks.
It'll be interesting to see how that
it should be interesting to see. Nothing would surprise me. He could come out and look really good. He could come out and be a total bust, and none of that would surprise me.
Yep. All right, Levi Wallace, cornerback out of Buffalo. Don't know much about him. Gunnar Olszewski, for a wide receiver out of New England.
Don't know much about him.
Yeah, don't know much about him. DeMonte Kazi, safety out of Dallas.
I think Kazi, he was like a San Diego State kid. I think he's actually He's one of those guys I think could have the potential to still be good.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's a good organization. I know that they do a really good job when they identify who's a team player for them. So
Yeah.
I have to give them always the benefit of the doubt as far as like they're bringing in guys that they know fit their system or whatever the case may be that they like that.
Mm-hmm.
Gerard Avery, defensive end out of Philadelphia. Again, don't know much about him. Trenton Scott, guard out of Carolina. Throwing people out that line again. And then Tuzar Skipper, outside linebacker from Tennessee. Not a guy I've seen on my radar either. So they did seem to bring in a lot of guys that maybe you don't know much about, but they have a tendency to get the best out of guys in certain positions, especially defensively. So losses: Ray McLeod, wide receiver. He went to San Francisco. I don't know anything about this kid at all.
He played at Clemson.
Okay. Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously somebody that we know. I feel like when you do, we're going to go over their starting wide receivers. You can look at it and very easily see where a guy like Juju, who actually did have some real upside and played real well his first couple of years, kind of took a step back the last couple. And while it's maybe not like he's a terrible wide receiver, I can definitely see why you would let this guy walk and bring in somebody to replace him because he does have, like you said, he's got skill, but it just doesn't seem to break away. At least it wasn't working there at the end there in Pittsburgh.
Well, you got James Washington that's coming down the list too. That also, this is, we talked about this with New England. With there's certain positions, there's certain teams and certain positions that you just go, I'm not going to bat an eye when the guy leaves, and I'm not going to be too excited about the team he's going to, just because he was successful. And to me, since Tomlin's been the head coach there, wide receiver is one of those. We've seen one guy after another.
Running back seems to be that way as well.
Running back as well. But wide receiver, one guy after another that lit the world on fire at wide receiver.
I mean, they let Antonio Brown.
Yeah, before Antonio Brown, there was Wallace. Remember Wallace?
Yeah.
I feel like there was another one before that. They just have these wide receivers that come in, produce, walk, and the next guy steps up and puts up huge numbers.
Yeah, they do a good job.
And so I think, we were talking about it, and you'll see it probably in the draft this year too. They draft wide receivers all the time. They're constantly going like 6 deep. They're always ready for the next man to step up. So to me, and I'm sure most Steelers fans probably feel this way, you're just not in a position you're ever going to be worried about because you always seem to have plenty that can play the position on your roster. That's one strength that they've had over the years is keeping that position strong.
All right, Trial Turner, guard out of Washington. Again, throwing or to Washington. I'm sorry.
No.
So they're losing that offensive line there. Josh Dobbs, backup quarterback, went to Cleveland. I think him and Mason Rudolph both are a little.
I don't think it's a big loss.
No. So James Washington, again, another wide receiver, went to Dallas. Jade Washington did produce for him. He was a good wide receiver, but again, like you said,
talented kid. But they've absorbed the loss of talented wide receivers time and time again without a problem. No reason to think that won't be the case this year.
All right, no trades up to this point at all. Their draft is round 1, pick 20, quarterback Kenny Pickett out of Pitt, and I have to say that for myself, I understand why they went with this pick. I don't think I would have drafted him this high. With the fact that him being a local kid, again, this is a team that does this kind of stuff. And they definitely had their eye on him. It was talked about before we even went into the draft, before the season was even over college, that, hey, if this kid was there and available for him, that they probably would be interested in him. I don't know that he was worth a first-round pick. I probably wouldn't have done it. But good for them. You got to take a chance anyways. You got a guy retiring. You know what I mean?
My read on Pickett, my thoughts on Pickett are solid quarterback. I don't think he'll be a bust. Whether he's a game manager is his ceiling, or whether he could turn into something more than that.
Low ceiling, high floor kind of a guy?
Yeah, I think he has a very high floor. I think his ceiling, honestly,
Mid.
is Matt Ryan-ish. I think he's a little Matt Ryan-ish. Mm-hmm. He reminded me of Matt Ryan at the college level. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know that he has all the. I don't know that he has. I don't know that he'll become as good as Matt Ryan. I'm not going to predict that, but I think he reminds me a little bit of Matt at the college level. That's who he reminded me of. He put up good stats a bit.
He did put up good stats.
And so I can see why if you're the Steelers, you look at this guy and you go, look, we're going to gamble on Mitch Trubisky. We're going to hope there's some talent that there's there to unlock. But we're going to take this kid, and he can be a solid backup to Mitch, or he could be a solid starter if Mitch is a bust.
And again, as we talked about with Mitch, look, I think Kenny Pickett can be not the greatest quarterback and still beat him out. It is possible. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I look to see Kenny Pickett take over. I hope for Mitch Trubisky that he gets the job and that he runs it all year. You get to see what he can actually do from start to finish. I would almost be surprised by that though, with them taking Kenny Pickett so high. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays.
So the biggest problem with Kenny Pickett is this: like you said, they are a loyal organization.
Yeah.
Right. So this could be your. Who was the guy that they had before Roethlisberger? They had that guy, Neil McDonald. Was that his name?
I cannot recall. I'm a little upset with myself for not being able to recall.
So they had a quarterback for a while there. They had Stewart was before Roethlisberger, but I'm thinking before him.
Yeah.
They had a guy for a while there that was just, You know, he wasn't horrible, but he wasn't great.
They kept him for a long time.
And they kept him for a while. And I can see this being an issue. Pickett might be too good to obviously get rid of, but not good enough to compete in an extremely tough environment, which is that conference, that division.
Then we'll see how it all plays out.
And that would be my biggest concern.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. I think that's one of those interesting storylines that I'm going to be keeping a real close eye on. So, pick number 52. We got wide receiver George Pickens out of Georgia. Great wide receiver. He really, really tore it up there in Georgia. I think getting him here. He's
injuries.
Injuries.
He was diagnosed with a degenerative spine situation. That
George Pickens was?
Yeah, that's why he slipped. I'm almost positive about that. No. That's the Clemson guy. I'm sorry. His was an ACL. Wrong guy. Yeah, got confused.
That's the guy that went to Kansas City.
This is the problem with watching all the teams. You get things confused. I apologize.
Yeah, I didn't think it was Pickens.
I apologize.
Although I do think that Pickens has been injured so far. He's already been injured, I think, in camp and stuff like that. And I don't think it was like a huge injury, but that is something to keep an eye on.
No, but he has the potential to be an absolute stud.
Yeah.
Or with injuries not be.
Yeah, he's an athletic freak. You're right, exactly. So, but it could end up being a damn good pick. And again, as we talk about their wide receivers, I mean, they have a good wide receiving core. So I think this was a solid guy here. Round 3 pick 84, defensive lineman DeMarvin Leal out of Texas A&M. Don't know a lot about him.
I like him.
Yeah?
I liked him. Yeah, he was one of the guys I would like to see the Bears get. I liked him a lot. He's a guy you can turn loose on the quarterback from the inside. So.
Okay. And obviously with their defense, I mean.
Yeah, there's a guy coming on the outside there, isn't there? What's his name?
Yes.
What's his name?
Jeez, what's his name? Danger.
Sorry.
That's why his name is. All right. Round 4, pick 138. Wide receiver Calvin Austin III in Memphis. One of my favorite players. I love watching Memphis play, and this has been one of my favorite players on Memphis in a long time. I think Calvin Austin is underrated. I think he is going to step in. He's a little bit small guy, but he's going to step
explosive.
in. Yeah, explosive. And I think that if you're a Steelers fan, I think you're going to end up loving this kid. I really, really do. He can really get some separation.
It's almost sad.
Track star.
It's almost sad that he couldn't have been paired with prime Roethlisberger.
Sure.
Because Roethlisberger's arm with that kid's speed.
Oh man.
Like this kid is probably what Brown was.
Yeah.
Like coming out of college, very, very similar skill set to what Brown brings to the table.
Sure.
So I think, we're going to be seeing, like you said, probably a different Steelers offense. So he won't have that role. But this kid would have been the guy that prime years of Roethlisberger would have set for a couple of years, let that guy go pursue the big free agency, and then step in and instantly get 1,200 yards his first year as a starter, and everybody's like, what's going on?
It'll be interesting to see with the quarterback situation what they can utilize and what they can't, but I do think that everybody's going to be really happy with Calvin Austin, and I wish he was on my team.
Yeah.
Round 6, pick 208. We got it's halfback / tight end Connor Howard out of Michigan State. I do think that he's going to get moved to tight end. I guess they can use him in both roles. I guess so.
Is that H back? I think that's H back,
Oh,
not
okay.
halfback.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's a fullback type. He's like
That's how I viewed it, anyways.
he's a beast.
Yes. Connor
That
Howard.
guy. He's a blocker. He can catch.
Thick.
He's a monster. He's a Steeler type player.
He is.
That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's a Steeler type player.
Yeah. That is what I meant when I say halfback too. Yes. All right. Round 7, pick 225, linebacker Mark Robinson out of Ole Miss. I don't know anything about him.
Me neither.
I didn't keep up with Ole Miss. I'm sorry.
Did not either.
They weren't that fun to watch, I don't think.
Didn't watch them.
Round 7, pick 241, we have quarterback Chris Aladakian out of South Dakota State. Man, stepping it up. He's going to give Kenny Pickett and Trubisky a run for their money out there. And,
I think he's an athlete.
yeah.
Wouldn't shock me if they end up switching him to another position, like maybe wide receiver. I'm pretty sure he's an athlete.
I don't know really much about him. So.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that brings us to, like, really, when you talk about their starters and stuff like that, you got Mr. Trubisky didn't have any yards last year. He had 43 yards and an interception, so in his playing time, there you go. He did throw an interception. You got Najee Harris, 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, 74 receptions for 467 yards and 3 touchdowns. Najee Harris is a absolute beast. He's a monster. Very fun to watch, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. That dude is going to, I believe, pick this offense on his shoulders, and that is going to be what they need to ride with, no matter who their quarterback is. So,
agreed.
yeah, he's fun to watch. Deontay Johnson, 107 receptions, 1,161 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Very high productivity. Chase Claypool, which really was the second wide receiver in there, who I love, Chase Claypool, and if he's your second option here, 59 receptions, 860 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Probably would have liked to seen a little bit more touchdowns out of him, but man, Chase Claypool is a damn good wide receiver. So then again, you go and you add that George Pickens with my boy behind him, Calvin Austin. This is a damn good wide receiving group, and man, they're fun to watch.
Can I just comment on? Dude had 170 receptions, almost 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns, and you acted like he was just a bum.
No, I didn't.
You're like he's solid stats. Chase Claypool.
No. That's
Chase
not
Claypool.
what I was saying at all.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was actually saying that
Maybe I
Deontay
missed
Johnson
it.
was good. Man.
He's
That was
a
good.
Beast.
That was great. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
the year before, it was Chase Claypool that had those numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they do this thing where, like you said, I mean, it's just a constant rotation of
just
wide
keep
receivers.
having guys.
They had where Antonio Brown was the big guy, and then before he even left, Juju Smith-Schuster came in, and then Juju was the one that was getting all of the things. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
could
and
see,
James Washington had really good stats last year too.
yeah.
So they let him walk in free agency, but I think he might have better stats than Claypool, actually. Like, Claypool, stat-wise, was like the number 3 guy.
Yeah, which, I mean, again.
But a lot of that has to do
my point
with-
was just saying that I love
Okay.
Chase Claypool, and if he's your
Yeah.
second guy, that's
No, I
saying
know.
something completely
Yeah.
about your wide receiving core.
Okay.
And they do. They have a great wide receiving core.
I kind of felt like maybe you were just like,
No.
let's just dismiss the 1,200 yards so I can talk about Chase Claypool, who I love.
I love Chase Claypool. Deontay Johnson is damn good. So, I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, there's nothing wrong at all here with this wide receiving core. It's very good. Very good. And even
The only
into
thing
this-
wrong with it now is that they're going from
yeah, that's going to be the
Roethlisberger
big
to
question.
Trubisky.
It's going to be the big question. Let's see how that goes. All right, tight end Pat Freemuth, 60 receptions, 497 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That is solid play out of him as well, especially with the 7 touchdowns. You like to see that.
They had the reworked offensive line. Man, like those are not the names I'm used to looking at when I look at the Steelers offensive line.
You're right. And just even the last couple of years, it's been such a huge
Yeah.
turnover. But we'll have to see how that all goes. I mean, really. All right, so defensively, again, the standouts here, you got even Chris Wormley. He's got 51 tackles, 7 sacks, and a forced fumble. Those are solid stats there. Cameron Hayward, who I think is an absolute monster. 89 tackles, 10 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble return, 1 interception, and 9 pass deflects at defensive end. I love watching him play. He's actually very, very fun. Then, of course, this dude, J.J. Watt, with 64 tackles, 22 and a half sacks.
That's his name.
Oh, my gosh. 5 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and 7 pass deflects. That dude is such a stud. It is absolutely nauseating, man. It is crazy. Them WAP boys, they're just built completely different than anybody else. He is so good. Even Kevin Bush, 70 tackles, 2 sacks, Devin Bush. I have terrible handwriting. And yes, I do know who Devin Bush is. 70 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 4 pass deflects. I would like to see a little bit more productivity out of him in some of those areas. But this is a younger guy.
He's young. He's getting better.
He is getting better. And I think he's a great player. There's no doubt about that. Then obviously they bring in Miles Jack. 108 tackles was all he really did over the Jaguars. I mean, that's a good amount of tackles, but there was nothing really special after that. I think that's going to change over here at the Steelers. I think he's going to have a lot better stats here going forward. And that is a great linebacking core.
And Alex Highsmith.
And then Alex Highsmith, yeah. 74 tackles, 6 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Productivity literally all over the place. You know what I mean?
So I think when you talk about this is, even though that defense was a little bit, like you said, a little bit disappointing with their defensive ranking last year. One of that is there's a lot of good defenses and a lot of good offenses. So, it's there might not be a whole lot of difference between the 20th ranked defense and the 10th ranked defense. Let's say that.
That's true.
Those aren't going to be a huge difference. And I think with the offensive struggles that contributed, that left the defense on the field more than they needed to be, you don't get to pin your ears back because you're ahead, which is the strength of what those guys do. So hopefully if the offense can improve, and look, leaning on Najee Harris, like you said, I think that should be the game plan. A possession receiver like Claypool becoming a bigger part of the offense so that you're, maybe you're not shooting for those 40-yard bombs, you're just moving the chains, chewing up clock. With that defense, that's the old school Steelers football. Tomlinson started coaching that way. He can find those roots again, and I think that they might not be the class of the division, but they're going to be a tough out week in and week out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's with average quarterback play. If one of those two quarterbacks turns out to be a good quarterback, then you could even heighten that.
And in cornerbacks, their secondary left cornerback is Kilo Witherspoon, 15 tackles. He had 3 interceptions, 9 pass deflects. Terrell Edmonds, strong safety, 89 tackles. Terrell.
Yeah, Terrell Edmonds.
That's Tercel. 89 tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 6 pass deflects.
He's good.
Minka Fitzpatrick, who is a beast.
He's good.
124 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble return, 2 interceptions, 7 pass deflects. And then Levi Wallace, who they got from Buffalo last year, is 58 tackles, 1 fumble return. 2 interceptions, and 10 pass deflects. This is a good secondary as well, and obviously, like you said, Minka Fitzpatrick is an absolute beast. So, I don't know. Overall thoughts, I have to say that I feel like the Steelers are one of these teams that are just never out of it. Do you know what I mean? And even if they take a step back, you got a guy retiring in Ben Roethlisberger, who they leaned on heavily for so many years. They still can replace that, and I think that they're not completely out of it. Now, you look at their team, if their quarterback isn't great, then, man, it's going to be tough to compete with a lot of these AFCs. But going forward in the next couple of years and such like that, this is a team that can turn it around like that. You know what I mean?
So this is what I'll say. When you move on from a Hall of Fame level quarterback who's won Super Bowls, who the fan base loves, that never goes well. It's always a tough transition.
Sure.
Look at we thought you guys had probably had with getting Andrew Luck. It was like the luckiest thing in the world. How could you get this guy, this generational talent, to move on from Peyton Manning? And that didn't even work out well. Yeah. So it's just so hard to do that. And I think that they did something over the last couple of years that is really interesting. They set up where they can drafting Claypool, a little bit different than the wide receivers they had drafted before. Big guy, possession guy. Not the typical wide receiver you want Big Ben throwing to, but this will allow him to move the chains better. Drafting Najee Harris so you can get back to leaning on that run. Retooling the offensive line in a way where it's more of a run blocking line than a pass blocking line. Investing in that defense so that they can get back to being
Agreed.
Hitters.
They did everything they can to improve that roster overall.
Yeah, and it felt like they knew Roethlisberger was coming to an end, so they prepared. It wasn't like they waited until it happened,
right?
And they were just throwing free agents at the problem and trying to.
That.
Some teams do that, They didn't do that. They saw the writing on the wall. They took the steps so that now it will be a seamless transition. Now, are they going to be as good? Look, if you're a Steelers fan and you think they're going to be what they've been,
Probably not.
you're fooling yourself. They're just not. I mean, not in the AFC, not with Buffalo and Kansas City and Indianapolis and
not this year.
And yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. But like I said, I think they have the tools there.
And they're not completely out of it.
They have the tools there to be a thorn in people's side.
That's right.
They'll still be entertaining to watch.
Yep.
They're youngish, and if one of these two quarterbacks ends up being average to above average, then there's reason to hope that they could get back to being competitive sooner rather than later, which, again, hardly ever happens when you move on from a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right. Yeah, I just think as an organization, they do a very good job of setting themselves up.
And like I said at the top, I'm excited because I like Tomlin a lot. I felt like Tomlin maybe needed to move on, or they need to move on from him. But now that we've got this, like, we're back to the roots of Tomlin. We're back to the style that he started with, younger. It's no longer the Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown locker room. It's back to being the Tomlin locker room again.
Yeah.
And I think that will be fun to watch. And if you're a Steelers fan, you should enjoy that at least, even if they're not
as successful
as they were. And hey, here's the other thing. You didn't trade your entire future for Deshaun Watson.
That's right. You did not. Okay. Well, thank you for giving us a watch. I hope that you got something out of this content. If you did, give us a like, give us a subscribe.
If you have something to say to us, comment. Tell us why we're wrong, why we're right. If you appreciate what we had to say about your team, or if you think we're a bunch of morons, let us know. We can handle that too.
Come back a year later after Calvin Austin has put up ridiculous stats and made you guys so happy that he got picked, and tell me how right I was about it. I like that.
Well, he likes nothing more than that.
Thank you for giving us a watch, and we look forward to seeing you next time.